I grew up in a small town in Ohio, and if you've ever lived in a small town, you'll know how boring it can get, especially for teenagers. There wasn't much to do besides hang out at the same diners, drive the same empty roads, and find new ways to get into trouble. One of the things kids in our area loved doing was exploring abandoned places. We had plenty: old barns, closed-down factories, even an abandoned high school. But none of them carried the same weight, the same reputation, as the Asylum on Miller Road. Everyone in town knew about it. Everyone had a story. Some people swore they saw lights flickering in the windows at night, even though there hadn't been electricity in the building for decades. Others claimed they heard voices if they got too close, whispers that followed them back to their cars. The stories about what happened there weren't consistent. Some said it was shut down because of neglect, that patients were mistreated, starved, and left in filthy conditions. Others said there was a fire that killed dozens of people, and the place was abandoned after the tragedy. Whatever the truth was, it had been sitting there since the 1970s, rotting, decaying, but never torn down. It was like the town just wanted to forget it existed. I was 19 when I first went inside. It was my cousin Mark's idea. He was a year older than me, and way more daring. He lived for that rush of adrenaline, the kind you get when you're not supposed to be somewhere. It was late October, and the air was already bitter cold. We drove out there just after midnight. The Asylum sat at the end of a cracked road surrounded by trees, almost like the forest had been waiting decades to swallow it whole. The building was massive, 3 stories tall, with broken windows that looked like hollow eyes staring down at us. The front entrance had been chained shut for years, but of course, there were other ways in. Mark had heard from a friend about a basement window that was loose. Sure enough, after circling the building with just our flashlights, we found it. He pulled the window open and slid inside first. I hesitated, staring into that black hole of a basement. The smell hit me before I even went in: mold, rot, and something metallic, like dried blood. Still, I followed him. The basement was worse than I expected. Rusted pipes ran across the ceiling, dripping water in steady intervals that echoed through the dark. The floor was damp, covered in dirt and broken glass. We crept forward, our flashlights sweeping across piles of debris and discarded medical equipment. Stretchers, cracked and bent. Old wheelchairs, their wheels rusted solid. A row of cabinets filled with yellowed paperwork that looked like it would disintegrate if you touched it. Creepy as hell, huh? Mark whispered, his voice bouncing back at us from every direction. I nodded, though he couldn't see me in the dark. We explored the basement for a while, but there wasn't much to see besides rust and rot. Eventually, we found a stairwell and decided to go up. The first floor looked like a war zone. Paint peeled from the walls in long strips, hanging like dead skin. The floor was littered with broken ceiling tiles. Doors hung off their hinges. It was hard to tell what any of the rooms used to be. Offices, classrooms, patient quarters, everything had collapsed into ruin. We wandered room to room, shining our lights on graffiti. Some of it was harmless: names, dates, the usual stuff teenagers leave behind. But some of it was disturbing. In one hallway, the same phrase had been written over and over again: "He's still here." Mark thought it was hilarious. "Classic ghost story crap," he said. "Someone probably watched too many horror movies." But I didn't laugh. Something about the words unsettled me. We pushed deeper until we came across a set of double doors with faded paint. Above them, barely visible, was a sign that read "Isolation Ward." I remember feeling a chill run through me, even before we opened the doors. The air was heavier here, colder. Inside were rows of tiny rooms, each barely big enough for a bed. Some still had rusted metal frames inside, their mattresses long gone. Others were completely bare, except for deep scratches carved into the walls. Not graffiti. Scratches. Hundreds of them. "Jesus," I whispered. "They actually locked people in here." Mark shined his light into one of the cells and laughed nervously. "Looks like someone didn't want to stay." We kept moving, but I started to feel it then. That heavy sensation. Like we weren't just exploring anymore. Like the building had noticed us. That's when I heard it. "Do you hear that?" Mark asked, stopping suddenly. At first, I thought he was joking, but then I caught it too. Breathing. Slow, raspy, uneven breathing. It was coming from the last cell on the right. We crept toward it, though my instincts screamed at me to turn back. The door was cracked open just enough to shine a light through. Mark went first. His flashlight beam landed on the far corner of the cell. At first, it looked empty, but then the light flickered, and for a fraction of a second, I swear I saw something crouched there. It had pale skin, stretched tight over bones. Its limbs were too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. And its eyes were wide open, staring right at us. The flashlight sputtered, and when it came back, the corner was empty. We both froze. "Did you see that?" I whispered. Mark didn't answer. He just turned and started running. I followed, heart pounding. As we bolted down the hallway, the doors to the other cells began slamming shut, one by one, in rapid succession. Each slam echoed like a gunshot. It felt like something was chasing us, hurting us out. We finally made it back to the double doors, shoved them open, and sprinted toward the exit. We knew exactly where the basement window was, except when we opened the door to the basement stairs, it wasn't the basement anymore. It was another hallway, identical to the one we just left. Same peeling walls, same rows of doors, same suffocating darkness. That was the last thing I remember clearly. The next thing I knew, I was lying in the grass outside the asylum, the morning sun burning my eyes. Mark was next to me, pale and shaking. Neither of us remembered how we got out. We never went back. But the story doesn't end there. For weeks after, I started hearing that breathing again. Not in the asylum. In my own room. Late at night. Slow, raspy, uneven. Like something was standing right next to my bed, waiting for me to open my eyes. I don't know if it followed me home, or if it never let me leave in the first place. All I know is, I still hear it sometimes. And I'm terrified that one night, when I finally get the courage to look, I'll see those eyes again.